radiates a signal. It's not seen with the eyes, but it's deeply felt. That signal, your energy, is your signature. It tells the world who you are long before you open your mouth. It's not shaped by what you say, but by what you truly believe, by what you rehearse emotionally, by what you allow to live in your body every single day. You've walked into rooms where no one said a word, and yet something didn't feel right. That's because energy doesn't lie. And while society teaches us to say the right things, to smile on cue, to be agreeable and likable, what's happening underneath is what people respond to. Your field of energy is constantly communicating with the world around you. It's electric, it's magnetic, and when you're being too friendly, overextending, performing, pleasing, your energy becomes incoherent, it's scattered. You're trying to be everything to everyone, and in the process, you're nothing to yourself. That's not compassion, that's compromise, and there's a cost to that compromise. Your authenticity. You were not designed to contort yourself into 1,000 versions to make others comfortable. Yet, from a young age, many of us learned to seek safety through approval. We became the peacemakers, the helpers, the overly nice ones, not because it was our nature, but because it was our survival. And over time, that survival mechanism became our personality. But let's be very clear, your personality creates your personal reality. So if your personality is rooted in self-abandonment, your reality will reflect that back. People will take more than they give, you'll feel invisible even while being liked, and no matter how friendly you are, you'll never feel truly seen. Why? Because your energy is out of alignment with your truth. You cannot fake a high frequency life while living in low frequency habits. People pleasing is a low frequency habit. Over apologizing is a low frequency habit. Saying yes when your soul is screaming no is not kindness, it's self. Betrayal masquerading as harmony, and your nervous system knows it. Every time you go against yourself just to be liked, your body records that. It contracts, it holds tension, your heart races, your stomach tightens, and the brain, deeply wired to keep you safe, takes note. To be safe, I must be small. But you weren't made to be small. You were made to be conscious. You were made to become aware of the energy you emit and the thoughts that generate it, because your energy is not accidental. It is the byproduct of your internal dialogue, your beliefs, your memories, and your expectations. If you are constantly thinking, I need to be liked or else I won't belong, then your body will follow with behaviors that match that thought. You'll smile when you're tired. You'll agree when you disagree. You'll overextend and then feel resentment, and you'll call it being friendly. That's not friendliness, that's fear in disguise. True power doesn't seek approval. It radiates presence, and presence comes from coherence. When your thoughts, feelings, and actions are aligned. That's when your energy becomes magnetic. That's when people respect you without knowing why. That's when boundaries don't even need to be explained. They are felt. Because when you are in alignment with yourself, you don't chase connection. You attract it. Let me tell you something many people are too afraid to admit. Being liked is overrated. It's temporary, it's fickle, and it's almost always conditional. But being aligned, that's eternal, that's magnetic. That changes lives. Not just yours, but everyone who enters your field. When you stop performing and start embodying, your entire frequency changes. You stop asking the world for permission to exist. You stop editing your essence to fit into fragile spaces. You become the signal instead of chasing it. Your presence says what your words no longer need to, because now the field around you, the invisible electromagnetic field generated by your heart and brain, is broadcasting a new message. I know who I am, and I am no longer shrinking to be understood. And when you start living from that space, when you stop being too friendly just to avoid conflict or rejection. You begin to reprogram your biology. Your cells respond to truth. Your body calms in authenticity. Your intuition sharpens, your mind clears, your energy aligns. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every behavior you repeat, they shape your identity. But the question is, whose identity are you actually living? For many, the answer is buried beneath years of social conditioning, quiet compliance, and the silent craving to be accepted. There is a moment, often early in life, where we begin to disconnect from who we really are. It's subtle. Maybe it was the way someone looked at you when you spoke your truth. Maybe it was the first time you were told you were too much or too sensitive. Maybe it was the praise you received for being easygoing, agreeable, quiet, when your soul was anything but. And so, unconsciously, you made a trade. You gave up a piece of your authenticity in exchange for approval. You learned that being yourself had consequences, and being liked had rewards. That trade became a pattern. That pattern became a personality, and eventually, that personality became your identity. But the tragedy is, it was never really you. Approval is addictive. Biochemically, it floods the brain with dopamine, the same reward molecule released during drug use or gambling. So every time someone approves of you, your brain gets a hit, and like any addict, you begin to chase the source of the high. You start shaping your thoughts, your choices, your speech, even your emotions, just to keep receiving that external validation. The brain gets wired to expect approval, to seek it, to fear the absence of it, and in the process, the true self, the one that acts from wholeness instead of need, gets buried. You begin to feel like a chameleon, adjusting to fit every room. In one space, you're loud and funny. In another, you're reserved and thoughtful. You've learned to read people like mirrors and reflect back what they want to see. But here's the cost. You've forgotten how to look inward and see yourself. The subconscious mind records every experience, and it doesn't care if it's true. It only cares if it's familiar. If over time you repeatedly associate worth with approval, your subconscious builds a blueprint. I am only valuable when others like me. That belief runs in the background like silent code, dictating how you show up in relationships, at work, even in moments alone. You start to avoid confrontation not because you're peaceful, but because rejection feels like annihilation. You say yes when you want to say no, because deep down you fear that no will make you unlovable. This isn't just psychological, it's physiological. When you betray your truth for approval, the body goes into incoherence. The heart and brain fall out of sync. The nervous system enters survival mode. Cortisol rises, the gut contracts. You may smile on the outside, but your biology is screaming. And when your body is in survival, you cannot access the higher states of consciousness necessary for transformation. You can't create a new future while clinging to old programs. To change, you must first become aware of the exchange you're making. Who are you when no one is watching? What do you believe in when no one is affirming you? How often do you filter your truth just to keep the peace? Every time you seek approval, you reinforce a version of yourself that is shaped by someone else's perception. That's not identity, that's performance. And performance, no matter how convincing, is exhausting. You start to feel disconnected, anxious. You might even achieve success, but still feel like an imposter. Why? Because the success wasn't built from alignment. It was built from adaptation. And deep inside, the body knows you cannot create a coherent life with an incoherent self. When your inner state is dependent on external validation, your energy field becomes unstable. The electromagnetic field around your heart begins to fluctuate wildly because your emotions are no longer self-regulated. They are manipulated by the reactions of others. And in that instability, the universe doesn't respond clearly. It gets mixed signals. You say you want freedom, but your frequency screams attachment. You say you want peace, but your energy is tethered to everyone's opinion but your own. The truth is, approval is temporary. Identity is eternal. Approval will shift with every room you enter, every face you meet, every trend that passes. But identity, real identity, is stable. It doesn't bend to fit in. It doesn't need applause to feel valid. It arises from clarity, from consciousness, from the deep knowing that who you are is not negotiable. But the mind, left untrained, will fight to maintain the old program. It will urge you to keep the mask on, to keep pleasing, to keep earning affection through effort. And the body, addicted to the emotions of approval, will reinforce that urge. That's why awareness isn't enough. You must teach the body what it feels like to be seen by yourself. You must sit in your own presence without rushing to impress, perform, or please. You must recondition your nervous system to feel safe in authenticity, even if it means disappointing others. Because the moment you stop trading approval for identity is the moment you stop abandoning yourself. Your brain is not designed to keep you happy. It's designed to keep you alive. It seeks the known, the familiar, the predictable. It loves repetition, even when what you're repeating is suffering. And that's why change feels so hard. Because change, by definition, is unfamiliar. It demands energy. It threatens the comfort zone where your nervous system has built its sense of safety. Even if that safety is stagnation, anxiety, or quiet desperation. The reality is this: the brain doesn't change in comfort. Transformation doesn't happen when you're relaxed, entertained, or validated. It happens when you're stretched, when you're faced with discomfort, when you break the old pattern, not just mentally, but biologically. If you're always choosing what's easy, you're choosing what's old. And if you're choosing what's old, you're reinforcing the same neural pathway, the same emotional addictions, the same behaviors that are producing your current life. Neuroscience shows us that every thought you think wires and fires a neural network. Every emotion you repeat strengthens that network. Over time, these networks form your identity. So if your identity has been built around being agreeable, avoidant, overly friendly, or silently resentful, and that identity keeps you in a loop of stress, approval, seeking, or people pleasing, your brain doesn't know the difference between that and safety. It simply knows, this is familiar, this is what we do. Now here's the challenge: the moment you try to do something different, say no when you used to say yes, speak your truth when you used to stay quiet, hold a boundary when you used to collapse, your brain will resist. The body will react, your heart rate may spike, your stomach may tighten, old emotions will rise. That's not a sign you're doing something wrong. That's a sign you're stepping into change, because the body, like the brain, doesn't want transformation. It wants predictability. It wants the chemicals of the past. Discomfort in this context is not danger, it's data. It's feedback that you're exiting the well-rehearsed emotional states that kept you in personality-based survival. And in order to evolve, you must recondition yourself to sit in that discomfort long enough for the body to catch up with the new mind. That's the edge. That's where neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, takes place. But here's the paradox. Comfort feels good, but it doesn't heal, it doesn't reprogram, it doesn't initiate new circuitry. You don't build courage in comfort. You don't develop worthiness by staying agreeable. You don't claim authenticity by staying silent. You build new identities by moving through discomfort, consciously, repetitively, and with intention. When you're too friendly because you're afraid to upset people, your brain has wired itself to associate harmony with self-betrayal. And the longer you obey that wiring, the more automatic it becomes. You don't even think. You just react, smile, nod, agree, apologize, all to avoid confrontation. But every time you bypass your truth to stay comfortable, you're deepening the same neural groove. And you're telling the brain, this version of me is who I am. But identity is not fixed. It's fluid. It's created moment by moment. And the only way to create a new identity is to think greater than your environment, to feel greater than your past, and to act greater than the body's urges to stay small. That doesn't happen in a cozy, predictable, emotionally padded reality. It happens in disruption, in uncertainty, in unfamiliar emotional territory. That's where the magic is, because when you stay present in the discomfort, without numbing, avoiding, or reverting, you signal to the brain that it's safe to change. And what happens next is subtle but profound. You begin to uncouple your identity from your past. You stop defining yourself by what's familiar. The old triggers lose power. The emotional addictions lose their grip. You are no longer reinforcing the same reality. You are creating a new one, but that new reality won't feel natural at first. It won't feel like you. And that's the point, because the brain can't predict what it hasn't experienced. And the unfamiliar isn't unsafe, it's just unfamiliar. Discomfort is the threshold between the old self and the new one. It's the space where your biology resists the future, but your consciousness insists on it. And most people retreat from that space too soon. They run back to what's easy, what's known. They confuse relief with growth and soothing with healing. But the nervous system can be trained. The brain can be rewired. The self can be remade. But only if you're willing to stand in that space where your body says no and your spirit says go. Because that space, the uncomfortable, unfamiliar, uncertain spaces where the old program ends and the new one begins. It's where you meet your edges. It's where you witness the tug-of war between your history and your destiny. It's where you stop negotiating with your fear and start making decisions from a future you haven't lived yet but are ready to claim. Everything in the universe is energy. That's not philosophy, that's physics. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every belief you hold. These are not just fleeting mental phenomena. They carry a vibrational frequency. They emit a measurable electromagnetic signature. And that signature, that field you carry, becomes your personal broadcast signal. It's not the words you say or the mask you wear that shapes your life. It's the frequency you embody. Most people try to change their reality from the outside in. They change their jobs, their clothes, their diets, their routines. But nothing truly shifts until the inner frequency changes. Because the outer world is a mirror, it reflects who you are, not who you pretend to be. It reflects the subconscious patterns you carry, not the conscious desires you speak about once in a while. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are in resonance with. Your frequency is a composite of your dominant emotional state, your habitual thoughts, your intentions, and your subconscious programming. And the field doesn't lie. You might say you want abundance, but if your frequency is rooted in lack, fear, and unworthiness, you will keep meeting resistance. You might say you want love, but if your energy radiates neediness, desperation, or self-abandonment, you will keep attracting relationships that mirror that. This isn't punishment, it's resonance. Your body is like a tuning fork. When you hold on to shame, guilt, resentment, or fear, you lower your vibration, you collapse your field, your heart contracts, your breath shortens. Your vision narrows. The future becomes a replay of the past because your frequency hasn't changed. You're recycling emotions, recycling thoughts, recycling chemistry. The brain keeps firing the same networks. The body keeps producing the same peptides. The signal you send into the field becomes predictable, repetitive, and magnetized to the same outcomes you say you no longer want. But when you begin to shift that inner signal, when you tune your nervous system to coherence, when your heart and brain align, when you choose elevated emotions like gratitude, worthiness, and presence, you enter a new frequency, a new broadcast, and that signal begins to organize matter in new ways. You're not forcing life to change. You're resonating with a version of reality that already exists but was inaccessible to your old energy. This is not magic. It's neurobiology and quantum physics converging. The heart has its own electromagnetic field, stronger than the brain's, and when that field is coherent, when it is steady, expansive, and emotionally elevated, it becomes a powerful attractor. Your body becomes a magnet not for what you chase, but for what you align with. People, opportunities, ideas, and synchronicities begin to reflect your new internal state, not because you did more, but because you became different. You don't have to force your reality to bend to your will when you are embodying a frequency that matches the outcome you desire. But the trap is that many try to fake the frequency. They smile on the surface while carrying bitterness underneath. They speak affirmations while their body still lives in anxiety. They act positive while their subconscious hums with doubt. That's incoherence, and incoherence sends mixed signals to the field. You cannot lie to your frequency. The universe responds not to your facade, but to your energy. It doesn't speak English. It speaks vibration. So the most important question is not what do I want, but what am I broadcasting? Are you living in the past while trying to create a future? Are you rehearsing stress while praying for peace? Are you holding resentment while longing for love? Your frequency is shaped by what you rehearse emotionally, and what you rehearse emotionally becomes memorized in the body. It becomes your baseline. If that baseline is frustration, fear, or control, then even if life gives you what you say you want, your body won't feel safe enough to receive it. You'll sabotage it. You'll doubt it. You'll resist it because the frequency isn't calibrated to hold the outcome. To shift your reality, you must become the version of yourself who already lives in that future, not someday, now, not in theory, in biology. That means teaching your body how it feels to be free, loved, abundant, and clear before the evidence shows up. That means practicing elevated emotions as a lifestyle, not a technique. That means tuning your frequency daily, consciously, with presence, until your entire field becomes the announcement of a new future. Love is not supposed to be the place where you disappear, yet for many people, that's exactly what it becomes. They enter relationships thinking they've found connection, only to slowly realize they've traded their individuality for proximity. They confuse merging with bonding. They mistake self-erasure for devotion. And they call it love. But real love does not require you to abandon yourself. It does not ask you to silence your voice, suppress your needs, or override your boundaries to keep someone close. That isn't love. That's a pattern. That's an unconscious agreement built on old wounds, unmet childhood needs, and survival-based wiring. The body remembers what it once had to do to feel safe. Be agreeable, stay small, anticipate danger, manage others' emotions, shape, shift. And when that memory goes unexamined, we recreate it in the name of love. From a neurological perspective, the brain wires itself through repetition. If as a child you experienced conditional affection, love that came only when you behaved, helped, performed, or stayed quiet, then the nervous system associated love with self-abandonment. That became the blueprint. So when you find yourself in a relationship, the brain doesn't look for truth or expansion. It looks for familiarity. It scans the emotional landscape and thinks, this feels like home, even if that home is built on the foundation of neglect, enmeshment, or codependency. So you start performing again. You begin predicting your partner's moods, filtering your emotions, accommodating beyond your limits. You say yes when your soul says no. You become hyper, aware of their discomfort and numb to your own. And the tragedy is, the more you give away pieces of yourself, the more disconnected you become from your own energy field. Your intuition dims, your clarity fades, your frequency lowers, because love, in its truest form, expands the self. But this version, this survival-based performance, dismantles it. The heart has its own electromagnetic field, and when you live in coherence, that field is expansive, resonant, magnetic. But when you betray your truth for someone else's comfort, you introduce incoherence. Your heart says one thing, your actions say another, and your energy splits. You're not just losing yourself emotionally, you're losing yourself energetically. And over time, the body records this. It memorizes the feeling of loving others more than you love yourself. It normalizes the contraction. You may begin to experience anxiety, fatigue, digestive issues, brain fog, not because love is unsafe, but because the version of love you've learned is unsustainable. You're trying to regulate someone else's nervous system while abandoning your own. This becomes a cycle. You give more, hoping to receive something in return. You overextend, thinking that effort will earn security. You suppress your needs, fearing they'll drive the other person away. But the body doesn't lie. The more you abandon yourself, the louder your body protests, and your energy field, once open and clear, becomes entangled. It's no longer the signal of an aligned individual. It's the signal of someone trying to hold themselves together while keeping someone else from falling apart. True love is not the absence of self. It is the deepening of self in the presence of another. It's the kind of connection where your boundaries are respected, your growth is supported, and your truth is welcomed. But to attract and maintain that kind of relationship, you must first embody it. You must become the frequency of self-honoring. You must radiate a signal that says, I am whole with or without you. This is where the rewiring begins. You begin to notice where you've been disappearing. You witness the moments where your voice goes silent, where your chest tightens, where your energy contracts. You trace that sensation back, not to your partner, but to your pattern, and you bring consciousness to it. Because the moment you become aware of the unconscious program is the moment you're no longer living it. You're observing it, and that awareness is what creates choice. You can love someone deeply and still say no. You can care for someone's heart without abandoning your own. You can hold space for another's healing without becoming their emotional regulator. That is the new paradigm, one where love is not sacrifice, but synergy. One where connection does not cost you your identity. One where you are no longer performing for acceptance, but anchoring into your truth and attracting from that place. Because the highest form of love is not found in losing yourself. It's found in remembering who you are and staying rooted there, even as you open your heart to another.